She asked why I was distant after her girls' nights. I told her the truth. I was preparing for her exit. The evening begins quietly, almost mundanely, but with a subtle tension that only he notices. The narrator, a 26-year-old man, sits on the edge of the sofa, his fingers tapping lightly against the armrest. The apartment smells faintly of coffee, warm and comforting, yet there's an emptiness lingering, the kind that fills a space after someone leaves. He listens to the faint hum of the street outside, the occasional car passing, the distant chatter of people heading home. Everything feels ordinary, but his mind isn't. She comes home later than usual tonight. Her laughter, a little too airy, fades as she steps into the apartment. He notices at first, the way she pulls her coat off slowly, the soft clink of her keys, the faint scent of perfume mingled with something unfamiliar, wine, perhaps, or a trace of another person's perfume. She is radiant, confident, her posture graceful and natural. She carries herself with a self-assuredness that makes her seem both approachable and untouchable at once. She is in her early 40s, experienced in life, yet her warmth and quiet vulnerability make her approachable. The narrator, on the other hand, is acutely aware of his youth in comparison, his careful observation of every micro-expression, every slight shift in her energy, a product of both admiration and insecurity. He remembers the small things, the way her hair brushes lightly against her neck when she laughs, the soft cadence of her voice, the way her hand lingers on the doorknob just a fraction longer than necessary. These are the moments he treasures, the tiny gestures that make his chest tighten with something he doesn't yet have the courage to name. Yet tonight, he senses something different. There's a subtle distance in her movements, a brief pause before she meets his eyes. He catches himself wondering, does she notice the same change in him? He reflects silently on their connection. Their bond is easy, comfortable, and yet tinged with an unspoken tension. She is lively, social, and her life outside this apartment is full and vibrant. He admires that, even as it unsettles him. There's an age difference, subtle but undeniable, that shows not in numbers but in perspective. She has lived, experienced, and learned in ways he hasn't yet. He respects that, even as it fills him with a quiet fear of being left behind, of misreading her intentions, of becoming someone peripheral in her world. Tonight, as she finally sits down near him, brushing her hand lightly against his arm in casual greeting, he doesn't reach for hers. Instead, he stiffens slightly, a reflex born from a mixture of longing and self-protective hesitation. He wants to close the gap, to reach for that warmth and connection, but something inside tells him to pull back. Not out of anger or dislike, but out of a deep-seated worry, preparing, unconsciously, for the possibility that she may one day leave. The scene closes on this quiet contrast, her effortless radiance and sociable energy against his introspective tension. The audience feels the subtle emotional currents, his admiration, his insecurity, his tentative longing, all wrapped in the gentle glow of the apartment's soft lighting. It's ordinary, it's intimate, and it's charged with slow-burn romantic tension. Here, the story plants its seeds, the age gap dynamic, the delicate pull of attraction, and the emotional stakes that will unfold over the coming days. The morning after her girls' night ends quietly, but the apartment feels different. He notices it instantly, the way her absence leaves the space colder than usual, not physically, but emotionally. He makes coffee, the steam rising in thin wisps, carrying the bitter warmth of routine, and wonders if she notices the way he's become quieter, more hesitant in her presence. There's a subtle self-consciousness in his posture, shoulders slightly hunched, hands busy with small tasks, avoiding eye contact more than usual. He reflects on himself, aware of the invisible wall slowly building between them. It isn't resentment, it's protection. He wants to care, to reach out, to brush her hair behind her ear the way he often longs to, but something inside him urges restraint. He fears disappointment, the sting of rejection, and the possibility that her vibrant social life might push him to the periphery. Each message she sends, cheerful, seemingly innocent, feels weighted with potential, the joy he once felt now tinted with quiet suspicion. When she finally returns, her presence fills the apartment as if she carries the echoes of laughter from her night out. He notices everything, the faint scent of wine mingled with her signature perfume, the subtle change in her voice's timbre, the soft sway of her hair as she moves. His eyes track these movements involuntarily, a mixture of admiration and anxious curiosity. Yet he sits apart, careful to create distance, hands resting loosely on his knees instead of reaching out for the comfort he craves. He catches himself overanalyzing the way she places her bag, the casual flick of her fingers, the brief hesitation before she greets him. Every small gesture becomes a puzzle he feels compelled to solve. Am I imagining things? He asks himself silently. But the truth is, he knows, he feels a subtle shift in her energy, one he can't yet articulate without sounding possessive or insecure. This tension simmers quietly, a slow, building undercurrent that colors every glance, every interaction. The emotional distance grows not from anger, but from a delicate mix of fear and longing. He remembers her laughter from the previous night, the way it lit the room, the confident curve of her smile. It's exactly that confidence, that life experience, that simultaneously draws him in and intimidates him. He admires her independence, but it leaves him questioning his own place in her life. The age gap, though unspoken, whispers in the back of his mind, a subtle reminder of experience, perspective, and the potential inevitability of being left behind. Small moments of affection emerge, fleeting but charged with meaning. She might brush her hand against his while reaching for something on the counter, he might catch her gaze across the room, just for a heartbeat. These interactions make his chest tighten, a mixture of desire and anxiety. He longs to close the space, to linger in those touches, but pulls back, afraid to misstep, to expose the vulnerability he's not ready to share fully. By the end of the day, the tension is palpable but quiet, simmering beneath the surface like a pot on low heat. The audience senses his internal struggle, admiration battling fear, longing tempered by self-protection, desire held at bay by uncertainty. It's a delicate balance, slow-burning, human, and relatable. This part of the story builds the foundation for the emotional friction to come, the hesitation, the quiet observations, and the subtle tension that keeps viewers invested in what will happen next. The tension that had been quietly simmering finally begins to surface tonight. He notices at the moment she walks through the door. Her laughter from the hallway, normally so familiar and comforting, carries a new energy, lighter, freer, almost untethered. The faint scent of wine lingers in the air, mingling with her signature perfume in a way that makes his chest tighten. He knows she enjoyed herself, he truly does, and part of him wants to ask every detail, to share in that happiness. But another part of him recoils, instinctively preparing for the emotional distance he fears. He watches her hang up her coat with a casual grace, noting the way her hair falls across her shoulders, catching the warm light from the hallway. She doesn't notice him observing, or maybe she does, but it doesn't matter to her. She is in her element, confident and radiant, completely unaware of the storm her absence has stirred in his heart. He wonders, as he often does, how she moves through the world so effortlessly while he feels fragile and tentative in comparison. The subtle tension escalates as they exchange greetings. Her eyes are bright, but he catches a fleeting hesitation, a flicker of awareness that he is quieter tonight, more distant than usual. His responses are careful, measured, polite, but with an unmistakable edge of emotional reserve. He doesn't reach for her hand, doesn't offer a hug, doesn't brush her hair behind her ear as he might have on other nights. Every gesture is intentional, a delicate dance between longing and self-protection. He notices every detail of her post-girls' night behavior, the way she lingers by the counter for a moment longer than necessary, the slight flush on her cheeks, the way her perfume seems stronger tonight, the soft rhythm of her footsteps as she moves around the apartment. Each small observation carries weight, amplifying the emotional friction between them. His mind races, cataloging the changes, analyzing the subtle signals, wondering if he's imagining things or if she truly feels a distance he can't yet articulate. There's a moment when their eyes meet, brief, charged, and telling. She seems to sense the tension but doesn't comment immediately, letting the silence stretch just long enough to make him uncomfortable. He feels a rush of emotions, admiration for her independence, longing for her closeness, and an undercurrent of fear fear of being left behind, fear of being replaced, fear of the inevitable distance her world might create between them. He reflects inwardly, the age gap isn't just a number, it's a lens through which he sees every interaction. She has lived, experienced, and moved through life with confidence that sometimes leaves him questioning his place beside her. He admires it, yes, but tonight, that admiration is tinged with insecurity. The idea of her leaving, even metaphorically, drifting away emotionally, has planted a seed of protective distance in him. The scene ends with them in the same room, physically close yet emotionally separated by unspoken tension. She smiles, oblivious to the storm within him, while he sits quietly, hands clasped, feeling the subtle pull of attraction and the weight of fear. The audience senses the slow burn, a fragile, growing tension that promises both heartbreak and intimacy, setting the stage for the crucial confrontation to come. The evening feels heavy in the apartment. The air is quiet except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the distant city noises outside. She notices at first, the way he sits a little straighter than usual, the deliberate way he avoids looking directly at her, the slight tightness in his hands as they rest on his knees. For someone attuned to subtle signals, she can feel the distance he's created, the invisible wall that's grown between them over the last few nights. She doesn't confront him immediately. Instead, she moves closer, her presence warm and steady, and asks softly, "You've been distant lately, is everything okay?" Her hand brushes lightly against his forearm, a fleeting touch, but enough to send a jolt through him. It's a gesture that could be casual, friendly, yet in that moment, it carries an intimacy that makes his chest tighten. He hesitates. Words feel heavy on his tongue, loaded with meaning he's not ready to fully reveal. Every instinct tells him to retreat, to protect the fragile bond he fears might unravel if he exposes his vulnerabilities too soon. But he also knows that silence will only widen the space between them. So he chooses a measured truth, delivered carefully, almost like a whisper, preparing for your exit. The words hang in the room, small yet immense. She freezes for a heartbeat, her fingers lingering on his arm, then withdraws slightly, as if the air itself has shifted. There's no anger in her expression, only surprise, curiosity, and the faintest shadow of hurt. Her eyes search his face, trying to decipher what he means. In that moment, the emotional tension between them becomes almost tangible, like electricity suspended in warm air. He watches her reaction, heart pounding. He wants to explain, to tell her that it's not about blame, that it's not that he doubts her love, but that he's afraid of being left behind, afraid of the distance her independent world might impose on him. Yet the words don't come easily. Instead, he lets the pause stretch, letting the weight of his emotion sit uncomfortably in the space between them. She tilts her head, a soft furrow in her brow, and asks gently, "What do you mean by that?" Her tone is calm, inviting honesty, not confrontation. Her hand lingers near him again, almost brushing his, a silent encouragement for him to open up. The room feels small, intimate, the soft glow of the lamp casting a golden hue over her face, accentuating her warmth and quiet vulnerability. He swallows, feeling the full impact of the slow-burn tension he has been carrying. His gaze drops to the space between their hands, then back to her eyes. Every instinct screams at him to reach out, to bridge the distance, yet fear and hesitation hold him back. This moment is pivotal, a delicate balance of desire and apprehension, longing and restraint. For the audience, the scene is electric with unspoken meaning. Each glance, each pause, each fleeting touch builds the tension higher. Viewers can feel the slow burn attraction, the vulnerability, and the emotional stakes rising as he teeters on the edge of revealing the depth of his feelings. It's the first real acknowledgement of their unspoken tension, a moment that promises that the emotional journey to come will be charged, intimate, and deeply human. The room is quiet now, save for the soft hum of the evening outside. The city sounds, distant car horns, the low rumble of a bus, filter through the window, but inside, time seems to slow. He sits across from her, the tension between them palpable yet fragile. Her eyes, warm and attentive, hold him in a way that makes it impossible to look anywhere else. It's in that gaze that he feels both the pull of desire and the sting of fear, a collision of longing and vulnerability that has been simmering for nights. He begins cautiously, his voice low, measured, almost hesitant. I worry. The words sound simple, but they carry years of unspoken emotion. She leans slightly forward, resting her hand near his, her presence steadying. He notices the small details, the way her fingers lightly brush the edge of the table, the warmth radiating from her palm, the gentle tilt of her head as she waits for him to continue. Each micro-moment is a bridge between their emotional distance, and yet he hesitates, fearing he might fall too far into the truth. I know you have your life, your friends, your world, he says slowly, choosing each word with care. And I'm scared of being left behind. Of not being enough, of losing you. His voice falters slightly, betraying the depth of feeling he's held in silence. She doesn't interrupt, she just listens, absorbing the weight of his honesty. The air is thick with tension, but it's not uncomfortable, it's charged, intimate, and profoundly human. Her reaction is tender, almost imperceptible. She shifts slightly closer, letting her hand rest near his on the couch. When he flinches at the nearness, she doesn't pull away, instead, she allows the pause to linger, giving him permission to feel, to fear, to want, without judgment. There's a subtle intimacy here, a slow-burn connection built not on grand gestures, but on the quiet acknowledgement of vulnerability. He swallows hard, finally letting his gaze meet hers. There's a softness there, an empathy that disarms him completely. Her hand, brushing against his arm, is light but deliberate, grounding him, reminding him that he is seen, that he matters. The tension that has been coiling in his chest begins to unfurl slightly, replaced with a tentative warmth. The room feels alive with their unspoken communication, the small, meaningful gestures, the pauses pregnant with meaning, the lingering eye contact. Every movement carries weight, a tilt of her head, a breath held just a fraction too long, the way she adjusts her posture to subtly close the space between them. These tiny moments tell a story that words alone cannot, and for him, they are more potent than any confession. By the end of this scene, a shift occurs. The emotional barrier that has kept him at a distance starts to crumble, replaced by a fragile, mutual trust. The audience feels it, the subtle but profound deepening of their bond, the quiet yet undeniable pull of intimacy. Here, the slow-burn romance isn't in a dramatic confession or a stolen kiss, it's in the lingering touches, the shared silences, and the recognition that both of them are daring to let the other in. This part of the story plants the seeds for the upcoming emotional peak. Viewers sense that something has changed irrevocably, the narrator's walls are coming down, and she, patient and gentle, is ready to meet him halfway. It's tender, human, and deeply relatable, a moment of emotional exposure that promises both heartache and the possibility of connection. The night is heavy with anticipation, almost tangible in the quiet apartment. The city outside hums softly, distant traffic, the occasional honk, faint laughter drifting from nearby streets, but inside, the room feels suspended, as if the world has narrowed to just the two of them. The soft glow of the lamp casts a golden warmth across the space, highlighting the gentle curve of her cheek, the faint line of worry in his brow. Every detail seems amplified, every small movement charged with meaning. They sit close on the sofa, yet there's still a fraction of distance between them, a space defined by unspoken hesitation. His fingers brush against the fabric of his jeans, restless, while hers move unconsciously, adjusting the cushion beneath her. He notices how her hair falls against her shoulder, catching the light, and the slight tilt of her head when she catches his gaze. It's a slow, deliberate dance, the subtle push and pull of intimacy that has been building over days and nights. The tension is more than just physical proximity, it's emotional electricity. He wants to reach for her, to bridge the gap with the simple security of touch, but something inside him holds back, the fear of misjudging, the fear of revealing too much too soon, the fear of being vulnerable and possibly rejected. Yet every instinct pulls him closer, and in that tension, desire and hesitation intertwine. She senses it too. Her hand rests just a hair's breadth from his, and for a moment, it hovers there, a quiet invitation. Their eyes lock, and the room seems to shrink around them. The silence is dense, yet full of unspoken words, longing, fear, affection, curiosity. A subtle smile touches her lips, soft and tentative, acknowledging the weight of the moment without breaking the tension. He returns it, hesitant but genuine, a flicker of relief passing through him as he realizes she isn't pulling away. Every small gesture is loaded with meaning. When her fingers brush his arm accidentally, or perhaps not, he feels a shiver run down his spine, heart tightening with a mix of exhilaration and anxiety. He wants to linger in that touch, to let the world disappear, but he restrains himself, conscious of the fragile nature of this slow-burn connection. Every breath, every pause, every glance amplifies the intimacy without a word being spoken. He notices the subtle shifts in her posture, leaning in just slightly, tilting her shoulder toward him, letting the space between them shrink by fractions of an inch. It's deliberate yet gentle, a silent acknowledgement that she feels the same pull, the same curiosity, the same desire for connection. The emotional stakes have never been higher, the possibility of closeness balanced against the fear of overstepping, the desire to reach out tempered by the weight of vulnerability. For the audience, this moment is electric. The slow burn tension has reached its peak, the point where the unspoken attraction, hesitation, and longing converge in perfect, delicate balance. It's a moment of profound intimacy, not through words or dramatic gestures, but through proximity, subtle touches, lingering glances, and shared breathing. By the end of this scene, the emotional foundation is set for resolution. The audience feels the weight of their connection, the pull of attraction, the fear of emotional exposure, and the quiet exhilaration of mutual vulnerability. This is the climax of the slow burn, a charged, intimate space where hearts and desires are laid bare, yet decorum and restraint preserve the tenderness that makes this romance deeply relatable and compelling. The apartment is quiet now, the night having settled like a soft blanket over the city. The distant hum of traffic, occasional laughter from the streets below, and the faint rustle of leaves outside the window create a serene backdrop. Inside, the tension that has been building for days hangs in the air, but now it feels different, lighter, more delicate, as if both of them are finally exhaling. He sits beside her on the sofa, their shoulders almost touching. The closeness is deliberate yet gentle, a careful bridge between the hesitation of the past and the warmth they've finally allowed themselves to share. She leans slightly toward him, brushing her hand against his in a movement that feels both natural and electric. It's the kind of touch that speaks louder than words, a soft reassurance, a quiet promise, a gentle acknowledgement of shared vulnerability. "I was afraid," he admits softly, his voice barely above a whisper. "Afraid of losing you, of being left behind, of not being enough." His gaze meets hers, and for the first time in days, he allows himself to fully convey the depth of his emotion. The words are simple, but they carry the weight of everything he's been feeling, fear, longing, and the slow-burning love that has grown quietly, almost imperceptibly, between them. She listens, her eyes warm, her expression calm yet deeply empathetic. Her fingers rest lightly on his hand, squeezing it just enough to anchor him. "You're not going anywhere," she says softly, her voice steady. "I'm here. I'm not leaving." The sincerity in her tone, the quiet confidence in her touch, melts the last of his apprehension. The emotional distance that had built between them over nights of hesitation and unspoken worry finally begins to dissolve. They sit in silence for a moment, letting the weight of their emotions settle. The glow from the lamp casts a warm, golden hue over the room, highlighting the gentle lines of her face and the intensity of his gaze. Every glance, every subtle shift in posture, communicates volumes, the affection, the trust, the mutual understanding that has been forged through vulnerability. This is the slow burn payoff, not a dramatic declaration or a sudden kiss, but the quiet, intimate moments that linger in memory. He reaches out, brushing a strand of hair from her face, letting his fingers linger against her cheek. She leans into the touch, eyes closing briefly, a silent acknowledgement of closeness and trust. It's a tender, YouTube-safe display of affection, simple, meaningful, and emotionally charged without needing to cross boundaries. The small gestures, a lingering hand, a shared smile, a gentle exhale together, carry the full weight of their connection. By the end of this scene, the emotional arc comes full circle. The fear of loss, the tension of hesitation, the vulnerability of honesty, all of it transforms into a quiet, profound intimacy. The audience feels the slow burn journey culminating in this moment, a secure, tender bond forged through patience, empathy, and emotional honesty. This resolution doesn't need grand theatrics. The story closes with a sense of emotional completeness, two people, different in age and life experience, choosing to meet in the space between desire and vulnerability. Their connection is safe, respected, and deeply human. In that quiet apartment, with soft light and gentle touches, the slow burn romance finds its natural, satisfying conclusion, a moment of warmth, trust, and lasting emotional impact.